Okay, I'm actually really excited about this one, and we have the Hob to thank for discovering this. So in the most recently unveiled Catching Fire poster, which was the one with Katniss on the cliff or on the rock, the Hob was very, what's the word I'm thinking of? I guess super observant, and they noticed some new information in the credits at the very bottom of the poster. And one of these new bits of information was the name of the new music supervisor. We knew that T-Bone Burnett would not be returning for Catching Fire. He was the music supervisor for the Hunger Games. And we had been wondering, who was going to replace him, and now we know. It is Alexandra Patsavas. She will be taking over, and she is pretty amazing. She worked on Grey's Anatomy, Gossip Girl. She did the soundtrack I think she's done the soundtracks for all of the Twilight films. I'm not completely sure. But, even if you aren't a Twilight fan, I don't think anyone can deny that the soundtracks are really good. And what else has she done? She was the music supervisor for Warm Bodies. I just saw that recently, and the soundtrack was awesome, I thought. She also did the soundtrack for Perks of Being a Wallflower, another amazing soundtrack. So she really has, a great track record of producing film and TV soundtracks. So I would love to hear what you guys have to think of her, what you guys have to say about her. I'm having trouble conveying my thoughts. Tiffany, do you have any opinions on Alexandra Patsavas?
Well, I do agree with you because if you can say anything about the Twilight movies that's positive, totally, is that they had really good bands on their soundtracks. I really, really, really liked their soundtracks, and I would download them just because of, how I liked the people who were on them, and they did original music for it. Also, the Warm Bodies soundtrack was really good. I remember when that movie came out, and I think it was Aldrin who, put together a bunch of songs from it because it was so good. So I was really excited that they got someone who's known for choosing really good music.
And if you think about some of the TV shows she's worked on, like Grey's Anatomy and Gossip Girl, Grey's Anatomy, I think, has always been known for having just a phenomenal soundtrack. And same thing with Gossip Girl. And one thing that Alexandra does is incorporate a lot of indie music artists in the soundtracks that she produces. So I think that definitely bodes well for the Catching Fire soundtrack. Hopefully that means we'll, get some artists that not a lot of people have heard of. Arianna, do you have any thoughts on Alexandra Patsavas? I know you're a Twilight fan. Did you enjoy all of the Twilight soundtracks?
Oh, yeah, and I know she also did Water for Elephants and Remember Me, too, so that's Rob's movies. And Water for Elephants is, one of my absolutely favorite movies, and the music was wonderful in that one. So I think this is definitely in good hands.
Crystal?
Yeah, and that was James Newton Howard also, right? Did Water for Elephants. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I haven't even seen that whole movie. I only saw part of it, but I actually still downloaded a song from the soundtrack because I think it was you, Savanna, who sent it to me. It was a track you really liked.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that movie, but the soundtrack is so good. So that's another one to kind of add.
About a circus that you sent me?
Yeah, it was one of the James Newton Howard pieces.
The circus
setting up.
That's what it was called.
Yeah.
And it had.
That's really good.
It was the circus sets up, and it was track 2 on the album. In case anyone's following and wants to know.
I love that.
It's a great track.
Crystal, do you have any opinions on Ms. Patsavas? Yes, no? I do have to say that I was really concerned about pronouncing her last name correctly, so I watched a couple of interviews with her on YouTube to make sure I knew how to say it. And the interviews that I watched, if I hadn't already been a fan of her soundtrack work, I think the interviews kind of would have sold me on her because she speaks with so much passion about what she does, and that's just really, really nice to see. Kait, do you have any opinions on her and her work?
I'm excited because, she's done so many great soundtracks. I really do love the Twilight soundtracks. Not something I admit often, because that's one of those movies where, oh yeah, well, I was listening to that soundtrack all day, but I always was. And, she's someone who, there are a lot of artists, from various genres, even though she usually sticks to indie. She has a lot of people who are willing to work with her, and I don't think it's just going to be like the same old. I don't think it's going to be too pop. I think that she can basically make this soundtrack anything that she wants, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. In the interviews that I watched with her, she was talking about how she was talking about how she receives, thousands and thousands of songs that she has to listen to, and she just seems, I don't know, just based on her interviews, I feel like I can trust her to make good selections. And she was talking about how she thinks visually when she listens to a song, and she tries to think about, how it would fit into the movie or the show, like what character it would work well with. And I don't know, it was just really neat. I recommend looking at some of her interviews. She seems like a really, really cool woman. Crystal, are you back?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here.
Oh
my God.
I was packing up, sorry.
I thought we lost Crystal. I thought we lost Crystal to the Red Wedding there. I'm glad she's back here.
I'm still here.
We never got Crystal, we never had Crystal tell us if she had recovered or not. Have you recovered?
I did a lot of prepping because I've read all the books, so I did a lot of prepping beforehand, rereading what happened and telling myself that it was going to be awful. So it wasn't as bad as it could have been, but I feel better today than I did yesterday. So.
Do you have any thoughts or feelings about Alexandra Patsavas as the new music supervisor?
Well, I mean, I do own the credit songs for the last 2 Breaking Dawn movies. I really like that song. So, I mean, I feel like those, it was the same song. I think it was like part 1 and part 2. I can't remember the name of it, though. Do you guys know what song I'm talking about?
I definitely do not.
No, it's 1,000 Years. That's what it's called.
Oh,
yeah.
Christina Perri.
Yeah. I love that song. And so I feel like she was able to pick a perfect song for the credits. So if she can do that for Catching Fire, that'd be awesome.
And one thing that Rebecca from Victor's Village pointed out to me the other day was that she is probably, or she's one of the people responsible for bringing the band Bon Iver into the public's eye, because she featured them, I think, on some of the soundtracks that she did. So, hopefully that means she'll bring in like some indie artists. Other comments about Alexandra Patsavas? I will read some comments from our listeners. So this is from District 11 Fruit Ninja. I immediately noticed Alexandra Patsavas' name when the poster came out. Though I will admit that it was sad to know that T-Bone Burnett would not be returning, I did research Patsavas, and she just so happens to have an extensive background in successful TV shows such as Mad Men and Grey's Anatomy. She also worked on the Twilight Saga, for which she received 2 Grammy nominations. This reinforces my belief that she will choose some pretty interesting artists for the soundtrack.